Hi, everyone, and welcome to, I believe this is the final session of MWC 21. This is MWC 21, who won, who lost, what did we learn? I'm Peter Jarek, the head of GSMA Intelligence. And most of all, I just want to start by saying thank you. I mean, this is pretty incredible. Can we get a round of applause from the actually pretty good-sized audience out there? Come on. I understand we actually have a good number of people who are with us remotely, so this is a great testament. We got people here live. We have people here remotely. It's going to be a great session. If you, as I've told people, if you only go to one session today after 2 o'clock, this is the one to be at, the only one that's taking place. But what we want to do is something pretty simple. I think at the end of the show for a lot of us, and I've talked to lots of people over the years who say their favorite part is sitting down at the end of the show and having a good conversation with smart people about how they thought the show went. Right? How many times have you asked that as you sat down? How was your show? This is the version of that. Sitting down with some smart people, asking them some questions about what they thought was good, who won, who lost, what did we learn. We may not talk about the losers so much because honestly, I think we're all winners if we made it here to the end of the show, saw so many great things. It's going to be a great conversation, a relaxing one. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to start with just a few things because I guess I get to stand up here and keep the mask off as long as I do. So I'm going to drag it out as long as I can. But this is what you'll see here is a bit of detail from the Mobile Economy Report. I think a lot of you know GSMA Intelligence. We put this report out every year, highlights about the market. Don't bother scribbling all these notes. It's available on the internet. There'll be a QR code at the end to download it. Really proud of this. It's a snapshot of the industry. It covers almost everything you need to know. It's a great teaser. Always proud of it. Please go check it out. I'm probably more pleased, more proud of the panelists that we're going to have, though. This has been something that I said this on an earlier panel when I had some analysts and someone from the media, that it's also partly a bit of me being lazy. Because when you're a moderator, one of the hardest things that you can do or have to do is get good conversations flowing. Right? You got to make people talk and get them. So I'm going to be lazy on the final day of the show and get people that I know will have a good conversation, people that are not afraid of shaking things up. So we're going to have Ronnie Haraldsvik. I think a lot of you in the industry know him. He is from Cohere Technologies. We've got Nicolas Zibell from KaiOS. If you don't know who they are, you will by the time we come out. Nicolas, come on up. I think I forgot to say Ronnie is here virtually. Can we have him wave or say hello or scream? There we go. I see him waving. I see him waving. Wonderful. We have our second in-person person, who would be Eugenia Jordan, VP of Marketing from Parallel Wireless. And finally, I think, and you know, I keep thinking sort of a lot of you folks probably know these folks because so many people do. Finally, we have Dino Floro from Qualcomm. Dino, how are you? I'm looking behind me, I assume. Thank you. Round of applause.
Everybody.
Another round of applause for Dino. Thank you very much. I'm going to sit down, but before I do, I'll get in trouble with my marketing person if I don't talk a bit about who GSMA Intelligence is. Again, I'm the head of GSMA Intelligence. We are the research and consulting arm of the GSMA. That means it's my team's job to deliver great insights, great data to drive the success of the industry. You see some basic points here. Our data covers every operator, every country in the world, 100+ reports a year, 130 depending upon how you count it. We're covering all the markets. If you're a customer, I've talked to a bunch of you this week. Thank you. We really appreciate it. If you're not, talk to us. That's it. That's the pitch. We're now going to get to the session. And I'm going to put my mask back on. So I think I've already made a mistake because I said we're going to make this. I said we're going to make this relaxed, but I guess I can't be relaxed with a tie on. So I'm going to take my tie off.
And the show is over, so the hair goes down.
Eugenia's taking her hair down, so now we can be. And I think for those of you who know me or see me, this is a big deal. Like taking my tie off is like, it's like a security blanket. So I'm going to keep this here. So you all have seen some questions, so I'm going to start. Ronnie, you didn't have a tie on?
I have a tie on. Actually, I was planning on talking about your tie choices, so I'm a little bit disappointed.
I'm going to start with a really simple one. Whether you were here in person or watching the show, you've probably been involved. How did you find it? Maybe Eugenia, you've been here. Parallel Wireless had a really horrible booth location this year, I hear. So how was the show?
The show has been great, and we're very grateful to GSMA for making it a safe environment, because we've all been stuck at our houses for the last 18 months. So when you decided to move it to June and the vaccines were coming out, we knew we were going to be there at MWC. And it's been amazing. What I personally missed, and my teammates as well, is seeing the industry. The industry is so small, so you all are friends. You all are part of the telecom family, and not seeing you guys for 2 years has been hard. That's the best part of the show.
And you had a lot of good traffic. Given that, for those of you who didn't know, the Parallel Wireless booth was right across from Cloud City.
Yeah.
So not too bad in terms of traffic.
Not too shabby. So as I told you, Peter, I don't know how we got it, but Ronnie, there are probably booth gods. And in the past, they smiled on you, and today they smiled on us.
I was Ronnie, Dino, watching the show from afar. How did you find it? How did it work out? How was the virtual or hybrid experience for you?
So, I've been, as you know, been going to MWC now for 19 years. This is the first time I did it virtually. And, I must say, just like Eugenia, that I really missed just bumping into people that you normally would bump into every so often and have ad hoc conversations. But from being afar and following the news and following, I think, the great work that GSMA did in actually pulling this together and making this work has just been fantastic. The coverage from Justin Springham and team has been great. And, it's good to just see from far, people meeting up, the booths being there, Cloud City being put up in record time. So a good experience from afar, and so maybe surprising to me, but I'm very happy that it actually ended up this way.
What about you, Dino?
Yeah, also from my side, and as you know, my company decided to attend virtually. It was very important for us that the show continue, and because the show must go on. And after all we went through in the last 1 year and a half, it's been great to be back and have another Mobile World Congress, even though from remotely. It's not the same experience as being there in presence. And we really hope that next year, now that we have restarted the process, next year we can go in person for all of us, because of course it will be great to see you all in person. Mm-hmm. But even from remotely, I concur with Eugene and Ronnie. It's been a great show, a lot of news, a lot of headlines, a lot of new stuff coming up. So quite interesting. And again, it shows that the Mobile World Congress can still steer the telecom industry, shows the next trends and next things, and it's the place to be.
Thank you. How do you think of it?
Yeah, so Ronnie, I think I beat you. It's been 20 times, not 19. I've been to every single show, and it makes me feel a bit like it was also many years ago when people had time to talk to each other, to actually have good interactions, longer discussions than when you're being chopped every 10 minutes because you have someone else waiting in line. So that was good. I was actually very pleased to see the number of startups. That's something that was not the case before, where they had front stage and they were actually not in some sort of very remote booth or very remote pavilion. I think it's good to have them center stage. I know there's a cost issue in economics, and maybe in the future they won't have such prime location anymore, but I think it's good because this is where you see innovation, you see the enthusiasm, you see the people willing to change things, And some of them are just very small companies. You can read their status, pre-seed, seed. When you get to Series A, that's already quite something, and they have fund stage, and they are super willing to share their projects, and that's actually very, very interesting. It's more interesting than having, you know, the companies that have been there for 20 years, and you have a bit more of the same. In this case, it's refreshing, and it's good to have them located at the same stage and the same location as the other you know, big names. So that's good, and if that can be kept for the future, that would be good to mix new and old. That would be very, very good in the future if that can be something to learn from for the future you know, MWCs.
You jumped right into the hard questions. My first hard question was going to be, with so much going on, what did you think was the coolest thing or the most important, or what dominated? So it was good to hear on the startup side. And by the way, I don't know about the rest of you, I've heard that from a number of people. I've heard that from a lot of people saying that having that startup section here was just incredible, like having that there. Of the technology side of things, do you think, was it a device-focused show or a hardware or?
So I think the biggest thing I would say is, I think the first time we all heard about 5G was maybe 5 years ago, and when it was pretty much a PowerPoint thing. And then from PowerPoint, it became a demo. And from a demo, it became real. So you had the true S-curve happening. And now what you can see is you can see real applications, real things in motion, real things concrete, real user cases. And that's good. It shows, you know, how the future is going to be. And the number of sectors that are actually showing what they can do with 5G is also increasing. Because everyone has heard about the same use cases over and over again. But what is refreshing is you see new use cases, and that is actually pretty cool.
What do you think, Eugene, from what you've seen? What was the big topic?
Of course, I'm going to say Open RAN. Right, Ronnie?
I absolutely agree with you.
So there was no shortage of Open RAN. What was the big, other than the announcements that involved parallel wireless, what was the biggest Open RAN announcement?
So there were probably a couple. The first one was from Google, joining O-RAN Alliance. So O-RAN Alliance is becoming so important to Open RAN destiny because interfaces are being standardized. And then the second one was from this morning. We were talking about AT&T using public cloud. So, and it's not a surprise that those two big announcements, they came around June, right, this particular week, because normally MWC is famous for announcements.
It's great to see people timing those things. I would say the other things, and for those of you who are out there who are listening, we will produce at GSMA Intelligence a wrap-up report that will come out next week. Open RAN will definitely be one of the highlights for the infrastructure side of things. I would just say in terms of the announcements that we've seen, I would also add on the work on that Deutsche Telekom is doing. And I think they're pulling in some vendors that we know. You can check that out, as well as Axiata, in particular because it was earlier in the month that we saw or last month from Vodafone, and we're really seeing that momentum. So it's as much as it's great to see the products, it's great to see the momentum from the operators.
Yeah, and the commitment, not just from the operators, but the industry as well. So
Dino, Qualcomm Qualcomm's that right? Qualcomm does. You did some infrastructure stuff. You've got Spectrum stuff. You've got device focus. The 888 Plus came out. So you obviously are looking at, from a Qualcomm perspective, everything. What was the most important?
Actually, you're right. So as a Qualcomm, first of all, we obviously come with a background of the devices, a lot of device center in the past, but we have been expanded to many more areas, like you said, including infrastructure, where we had a couple of important announcements for the small cell and for the vRAN, the DU accelerator. But I must concur with the other speaker that if I had to say, the main new trends I was observing is really around infrastructure, and even, again, coming from the device background. And the transformation that is happening with 5G in the infrastructure side. And two key trends. One is the transformation of 5G infrastructure itself with the Open RAN and the virtualization trends, which are two distinct trends which intersect at some point, but they're both interesting on their own. And they're both happening finally, and you can see many announcements around that. There is also still related to infrastructure, how this 5G somehow gets together with the cloud, the public cloud, private clouds, cloud edge computing systems. And I think this is getting us to get the full potential of 5G, the transformative part of 5G, not the. So that is why 5G is becoming more transformative than the previous technology, is also this merge with the cloud, connecting all these devices and get this intelligence from the cloud to these devices. This will be the real transformation. And we see many announcements from many cloud players that they are getting a bridge to the 5G world and the operator, the infrastructure, and the device vendors. And this will be an interesting trend that will happen in the next few years.
Okay, Ronnie, you're last. You can't repeat what anyone else said.
Oh, but maybe not repeat it, but I think we need to emphasize the importance of, Deutsche Telekom doing what they did and announcing these, series of vendors, Dell, Fujitsu, Mavenir, and others. It is big. It's frankly huge, coupled with the cloud, because it is changing a massive status quo in the industry, which is, a few years ago, disaggregation, vRAN, yes, interesting, but now it's becoming real. Frankly, you can differentiate and innovate now on top of it, not just the cost savings. So that coupled with, Qualcomm re-entering the cellular infrastructure market and making the announcements, I do think we are seeing a shift there. And that is that the status quo is over, it's done. I think that was also emphasized with what Daniel Royston, the telco doctor, did, taking over, Hall 2 and creating what they did, and that being new, and Ericsson being, quote unquote, the established player. I do think we are seeing a big transformation here, and that's to do with innovation on top of an open ecosystem. So
I was told earlier that, given the title was, and you guys have all had, I think, sort of what the winners were, what the main. I was told that I will be labeled fake news if we don't address the losers, because it was in the title. The title that says was winners and losers, and so, joking aside, let's maybe reframe that and make it not about losers but challenges. From what you've seen in the industry, maybe what wasn't discussed here that should have been discussed, that you'd like to see more of. I think what didn't we hear about?
So I'm going to be a bit provocative here, maybe. One of the main thing that we don't talk about is that actually the digital divide is not improving. We still have about half of the world population not being connected. And all the drive to 5G and all the drive to the new application is actually creating shortage on components. And one of the side effects of the shortage on components is that the cost of low-end devices actually goes up. And it reduces your affordability. So it makes the matter even worse. And you need to find solutions to make sure that those who cannot afford a device can get into a device. This is what we do at KaiOS, but others also work in this. So one of the things that we don't talk about is every time we move up the ladder, it has a side effect. And that's something that we need to be conscious of.
So is this, I think a lot of you would have tuned into the Elon Musk keynote earlier in the week when he was talking about his progress with Star. So is this when you announced the new KaiOS satellite phone? Will there be a KaiOS satellite phone anytime soon?
I don't believe so,
no.
Because first of all, we don't design.
So I didn't mean to fluster you. Apologies.
No, it's no issue. The issue so KaiOS is an operating system, and it's actually a device we call a smart feature phone, which fits in between a feature phone and a smartphone, exactly to try to bridge the digital divide. Satellite phone is another set of technologies, but definitely there will be things going on.
Different markets.
And my background was also in satellite internet. That's probably why you're asking me the question. And I see a great future for satellite internet. But this morning I was on a session on rural connectivity, and what most people forget is they say, oh, half of the population is not connected because half of the population doesn't have a network. Actually, 80% of those who are not connected do have a cellular network. So the issue is not whether they have or not coverage. The issue is, do they use internet or not? Do they want to pay for data, or can they afford to pay for data? Can they afford to pay for a device? It's a completely different discussion, because the network is there except for maybe 500 million people in the world, or obviously planes or boats. But for the rest, there is a network. It could be cheaper, it could be more efficient, it could be faster, but there is a network with this 3 or 4G. So the big issue on the digital divide is the affordability of devices, the affordability of data, and the financial inclusion that goes with it.
Yeah, it's an important reminder that the connectivity gap is not just a coverage gap. It's a usage gap, skills gap, local content costs. It all plays a role.
Yes, there are many components, and you mentioned quite a few. So and to be able to bridge that is not only one player bridging it. We are trying to do our piece, but it's not only one player. You have obviously the regulator, you have the tax mechanism, you have the local carrier, obviously the chipset vendors, and welcome here Qualcomm and all of our chipset vendors, and you have lots of different other parts, and obviously the OEMs in the equation. So it's a long game to be able to bridge this digital divide.
What else do we need to do better on, Eugenia? What else aren't we doing well enough, or didn't we do? Or a big challenge we need to overcome?
So I think the biggest challenge for GSMA was overcoming all the COVID restrictions. So, and kudos to you for all the COVID testing, the cleaning. So I know it was not an easy task. So it gives all of us in the industry hope that physical events, they're going to continue. So, and that's awesome. So round of applause, because you guys made it here. So,
and for those of you who weren't here, I think we were all super impressed with the test. It was super easy.
Super easy, super fast. You got your test results in your badge, so it's absolutely amazing.
I can't imagine the number of times I've seen people on LinkedIn like posting pictures or stories of their process through it. It was like they were excited about, this is just crazy how easy and cool this is, that you wouldn't think that people would. Yeah, that was a little weird, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, it's very sad that we had to wait for a pandemic like this to come in to be able to have an easy process to get into the show. Because we used to have the badge and the passport and the check, and it used to take forever. Now it's not because there were fewer people coming, it's also because you just had to show your QR code and the face recognition, and it was an easy play. This technology could have been implemented years ago. So it's good that if there is something positive to take out of it, that's one of them.
You stole your line, right?
No, the pandemic accelerated. It accelerated a lot of. Okay, what are the challenges from afar, Dino, Ronnie? I mean, what do you think? Didn't we do well here, or challenges that we highlighted we still need to overcome?
Maybe I'll start because I wanted to comment on the comment was made earlier. So of course, and it is a challenge, but I would like to put it in a slightly different context. It was mentioned before that the rise of 5G, let's say the success of 5G is also creating a shortage of components, which is one of the causes for not closing the digital divide. So I would not frame it that way. It is a challenge. Unfortunately, it was a challenge that came with COVID, a bunch of things in the supply chain, which we are aware of, and it will be a long story to say. But it's a temporary challenge. On our side, we are very optimistic that this will be solved for next year. So I want to say, of course, it's a challenge due to this special situation of COVID. We don't see that the 5G per se will put a strain on the supply chain, on the shortage of components. Once we go back on track, we overcome this, again, special situation created by COVID and few other, again, exceptionalities that we lived on in the last 1 year and a half. I think we'll go back on track. And again, we'll go back to 5G, contributing to the trend of connecting more people, more things. It is a challenge, of course, to close the digital divide. I'm not saying that. I just wanted to say, yeah, there is this temporary challenge is being addressed, and will with 5G will continue to grow and connect many things and many people as we were expecting.
Ronnie, what didn't we do? Don't take the easy way out and talk about a challenge. Just tell us what you can take a pot shot from afar. What didn't we do well?
When you say we, do you talk about the industry or the GSMA? Because
let's keep my job and just talk about the industry for right now.
I'll be very direct. I don't think the industry has done a good enough job separating between the 4G experience and a 5G experience with specific use cases. There's only so many times you can talk about remote surgery and applying that to yourself and your own experience. So I think that we need to do a better job there. And right now, I believe Stefan on Monday talked about there's only 8 standalone networks out there for 5G. Operators in the U.S. are actually giving away 5G phones just to accelerate that process. But there needs to be a better reason for why moving from 4G to 5G. Besides the fact that it's 5G. Now we're huge fans of 5G. Don't get me wrong, but I think we need to do a better job as industry to separate between the two.
So I'm hoping that when you're here in February next year, Ronnie, that Telefonica will still be showing it off. But I will say, and there's still, for folks who are here, there's still time to go and see it. Telefonica actually has a really cool sports demo in their booth with connecting everything in the stadium. I know connected stadiums, it's not new. It's pretty cool. So hopefully they'll still be showing it in February. But I guess a follow on, Ronnie, so if you don't think we've done enough of a good job showing the difference between 4G and 5G, you're probably thrilled that this is the year we started talking about 6G, right? That means that it's clearly the right time to be talking about 6G, or what do you think?
I'm a little bit surprised that we did end up talking about 6G. I kind of had that pegged for next year's Congress, which probably I will be right about, which is it's going to get more emphasized. And that's because we have extreme mobility situations where current OFDM waveform is not being able to handle it enough, or the use of delayed Doppler is actually improving things both in 4G and 5G. Regardless if we're talking about 6G, it needs to be in context of 4G and 5G. This all needs to work together. So why talk about 6G? It's just highlighting, I think, some of the, I'm not going to say deficiencies, but some of what's lacking in the OFDM waveform. Think about it: 4G and 5G, it's OFDM. 5G is OFDM with massive MIMO or MIMO. So I do think that the industry will end up talking about it more, just because of extreme examples of lowering the latency even further, going higher up in the spectrum and the bands, and making that available. But it can't be as a result of, say, 4G losing or 5G losing. We need to just make these waveforms work together. So
I know, Eugenia, we've got multi-standard is a big thing for parallel wireless. Is 6G on the roadmap for what goes on with you?
It will be. So when the industry defines the standards for 6G, definitely it will be. So 5G is challenging because I'm agreeing with Ronnie. 5G right now is just a little bit better than 4G. So end users are not going to pay if they get a tiny little improvement in their speed. And some of the use cases that 5 years people were excited about, they're now moving into 6G. So I think what we need to do as the industry is get the 4G right. So I'm in agreement, because there's so many people unconnected or underconnected in this world. So we need to bring to those people connectivity first. I live in a small town in Massachusetts, and I have barely any connectivity. I'm 40 minutes away from Boston. So when you were talking about the ecosystem needs to evolve. It's not just the vendors that need to care about connecting people. It needs to be the regulators, governments, and it's not going to be done until we form a new ecosystem. And what I noticed this year, and probably it's because of COVID, we didn't have a lot of regulators here or the governments. So hopefully they will come back in 2022 and we can continue this discussion. Because our Open RAN, our technology where we play parallel wireless, it's not going to be successful to its full potential unless the new ecosystem emerges. And governments, regulators, vendors, chip manufacturers, system integrators, they're going to be all part of that ecosystem.
So getting KaiOS on the right devices and getting the ecosystem, I mean, are you seeing that? Is that also important for you guys, all those folks, that whole ecosystem coming together?
Yeah, obviously, that's KaiOS is an ecosystem play, right? We need to align with our chipset vendor partners. We need to align with the manufacturers, with the MNOs and the key players in each one of the markets that we address. I think the best example is India, where we partner with Reliance, and now we have more than 100 million customers being connected on the KaiOS platform in India only. 150 million worldwide, and it always worked when you had a combination of all these different players aligning and making sure that they don't only address the cost of the device, but they address the cost of the device, the apps. We also work obviously with the key app vendors and the big blockbuster apps to make sure that all the pieces align well, so that you can make and you can implement those transformative elements to be successful.
Okay, Dino, save me here. I brought up the 6G topic. I left you for last because you're going to save us here and tell me why 6G is.
I need to save also 5G because I feel a bit responsible for. Given my background, of course, I've been very involved in the development of 5G from the beginning, and I will be a bit more optimistic about 5G. First of all, I would say we have just started with 5G. Ronnie mentioned that some of the new stuff will come with standalone, and these new use cases, and this also the release 6 with the reliability and the new stuff. But even the stuff we have deployed so far, for me, they were very important. When we set out to create this new standard many years ago, we were trying to really address this problem, which is not a small problem, at least for us. I can understand it will be more complicated to explain to consumers, but even this, what we have done so far, it's incredible if you think about it, because we created a platform which was much more efficient to deal with the higher bands and wider spectrum and higher bands, not only millimeter wave, but also the mid bands, which have been deployed across the world. So it was much more efficient to do it with the 5G than 4G. And we put all this bandwidth and bands available to consumers. Operators were able to cope with the huge demand thanks to these new capabilities which we have introduced with 5G. Note, somebody will come and claim, and of course 4G could have done it, but actually not, because of course 4G is great. We standardize it to have a infinite carrier aggregation capability. We could have done 10 CA, 10 aggregate 10 carriers. But reality is, guess what? The devices would have been very expensive, very power hungry, very inefficient. So at the end of the day, we really needed to fix also this problem to cope with the huge demand. We had to create this framework which was more optimized, even for just mobile broadband use cases. And to give the operator the tool to unlock the real potential of the mid bands, high bands. So it was very important. So I don't find that less sexy, but I'm also like Ronnie waiting for the next generation 5G use cases. The one will be unlocked with standalone, with low latency, URLLC use cases, and all the industry we can do. So we have great potential in front of us for this second wave of 5G, unlocked by this reliability, standalone capabilities as well. And of course, the industry proceeds with its own pace, and the discussion started with 6G. There's research on this topic. Standard bodies are started to have preliminary discussion. It will take a long time, and it will be business. In a way, it's business as usual. So also on 4G, we set out to discuss 4G when we were deploying 3G. At the time we were deploying 3G. Now it gets more in the news because of also some geopolitical stories. But I see that as a business as usual, and the industry will prepare for the 6G. It will take time to align all the ecosystem players and go through all the steps. Again, we're still far for having the line of sight to when we will have 6G, what capabilities will include, with new bands will unlock, and so on and so forth. But yeah, we will definitely go there because the industry doesn't stop.
I'm disappointed. I was hoping for a little bit of 6G boosterism. For what it's worth, I was on a 6G session. I think it was the only time when I wasn't a moderator when I was presenting. So if anyone's out there and you want the slides, just let me know. We have results from 100 operators around the world, what they're looking for. We're getting ready. So, okay, we have a little bit less than 10
Peter,
minutes. Oh,
just
no.
to jump in there, because
Oh, no.
yeah, I mean, you want to stir things up, so let's do it. Rather than talk about this as 6G, even though it may actually include a new waveform, let's think about this in the context of 5.1, 2, 3, 4, rather than just sort of labeling it 6G, because that creates separation between the two. Back to what I think we're all missing here, which is the jump from 3G to 4G, as we remember, was huge. I mean, the user experience was dramatic, and frankly, the efficiencies of the network actually increased too. I think 5G did that as well, meaning that it created a better, more efficient network, more wider bands. It made it better for operators and the ecosystem to innovate on top of it. But was the jump from 4G to 5G significant enough for the user experience, which is what 3G and 4G was? And that's where I think we need to do a better job as the industry. And then just to make sure I create a little bit more stir, I would actually disagree about the fact that we're not doing a good enough job on the digital divide, because every time a digital divide number is being used, it always has to do with fixed mobile broadband. And we keep in mind that, as your intelligence is showing us, we're getting towards 7 billion connections. So many people don't use fixed broadband anymore. They rely on their phones, in areas where they have great coverage. And if there's one thing that Elon Musk did great for us this week, in the industry is, he's going to deploy satellite broadband, invest, 20 billion to 30 billion, and reach another 500,000. So that's going to help you get towards your goal of 7 billion. So I think we are doing a good job on digital divide. It can always be better.
I think that's the key. I think it can always be better. We can't take our eye off that ball. I think it's well said, Ronnie. I will say, I think the question on that experience is just what level of experience? Is it coverage? Is it capacity? Is it cost? So I think we will see more as we get to SA. We now have a little over 5 minutes before we're done, and I know some people have been great to come here with other things that start right after. So I'm going to stop looking backwards. We've talked about this show, and maybe look forward. We are now just about 8 months away from MWC 22. I know that there's been a lot of people who are questioning when's it taking place, but I think there's a number of signs that all tell you when it's taking place back here in Barcelona in February. So what are we looking for? What's going to be the big news or the big hope? And what will we see at sort of that stepping stone in between at MWC LA? And maybe not focus on our own industries, which means you can't say Open RAN, Eugenia. Other than Open RAN, what are we going to be talking about at MWC 22?
So as I was walking down the street, I saw people of Barcelona, and here on the trade show floor, I saw wonderful ladies coming to our booth, cleaning, and I saw wonderful ladies, cleaning the ladies' room, and I saw people serving food. So I think this show was so important, not just for us, for our industry, it was so important for Barcelona. Our booth contractor came from Poland. They were excited to get back to work. So I'm hoping that MWC 2022 will be hybrid. There will be more people coming to Barcelona, more connections, and more people will be going back to work, from people in technology to people, chefs, restaurants, and so on. So I'm just hoping to see more people creating better lives for themselves and their families.
That's a great, I think we're all looking for that. Nicolas, what you said you haven't missed, it's been 20 some years, so we assume you'll be there in February. Yes. What are you looking forward to?
So I'm going to touch on a topic that is not discussed very much at the previous MWCs, and I hope to see it more in the future, is lots of discussions obviously around the reduction of the carbon footprint of our industry. And to be honest, I've been all around the show, and there's nothing that actually convinces me that we're doing a good job at reducing our carbon footprints. Everyone claims that it's carbon neutral, but the reality is we're using more and more computing power, more and more servers. And what are we doing concretely? What is really the carbon footprint of our industry? And how is this being tackled? And how are we meeting the Paris Agreement targets? And where do we stand? And every year, you've got to have a metric to see, are we on track? Are we not on track? Not individual companies saying, I'm doing a good job, and here's my sticker. It's, as an industry, are we within the framework? The airline industry is tackling it. They're not necessarily very good. At least they have a path. What is our path to the carbon footprint reduction?
And I can promise you, so you know where they talk a lot about energy efficiency? 6G. But I can tell you that fully expect at MWC 22, if nothing else, because MWC, well, one, because we know for all the operators, it's definitely part of their strategic agendas. Two, we will be having the upcoming COP taking place over in this fall, so it's coming right on the heels of great climate meetings. So,
but is our footprint increasing or decreasing?
It's a good, well, shameless plug. My team is actually doing some benchmarking exercise with operators. If you're an operator out there, you're doing work with us, you know who you are. If you're not, reach out. We would love to include you in that to answer Nicolas's question, because it's an important question. And until you benchmark it, and until you do it, you're right. You can't sort of say you're doing well. So I think it would have been a great point if my team wasn't doing work on that, but it's even better.
So Peter, you and Nicolas, I can tell you that every conversation that we have with both vendors, silicon players, and so forth has everything to do with lowering cost, making it more compute efficient. I think kudos to Nokia and Ericsson for making their base stations smaller, lighter, and so forth. So I think there's a lot of efforts going on.
Yeah, no, it's a big focus. So Ronnie, what else, other than that, what else do you expect or are you looking forward to from MWC 22?
I would say extreme communication, extreme mobility, sensory communication. I think it's going to be maybe a couple more years before you can sit in San Francisco and smell the ocean in Barcelona. But I think sensory communication is going to get a lot more emphasis moving forward.
Wow, that's Dino. We just almost at the end, so we're going to give you the final words. What are you looking forward to from MWC 22?
I think as we cannot mention Oran, so I will probably what we discussed before. I will look forward to have some more concrete progress on the new use cases we can bring to life with 5G standalone and latency and reliability capabilities we can unlock with release 16. Having more concrete use case, creative use cases will be awesome.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think our research shows, although as you point out, Ronnie, that there's only a handful of standalone networks out there. It's over a third of the operators who are either trialing or engaged or have announced their commitments or investments. So I think this is the year we're going to start seeing standalone scale, which is great. With that, I think we are just at time. I'm going to do, I think, one last shameless plug before I go. But let me just say, this is up there. It's on the screen now. That is Barcelona. I think it's not just in the back of Ronnie's slide. That's a QR code for all of you who are not here or are here that will get you the Mobile Economy 2021 report. Please check it out. We put a lot of time and effort into it. It's really important. Check it out. But with that said, let me thank Dino. Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you, Gina. Thank you, Nicolas. Thank you, everyone who supported MWC virtually, in person, all of you in the audience. Thank you all. Stay safe, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.